Hello, I'm Maciej Mikos and you're watching World Talks. More than 1,000 people detained, more than 100 policemen wounded. Protests in Turkey against the arrest of Recep Tayyip Erdoğan's main political rival have been dubbed by the president a movement of violence. How will the situation develop and could it herald major changes in Turkey? And to talk about it, we have Pelin Ayan Musil, a senior researcher at the Institute of International Relations, Prague, joining us online. And we have Witold Repetowicz, Dr. Witold Repetowicz from War Studies University, also research fellow at the Casimir Pulaski Foundation, joining us in our Warsaw studio.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So we'll start with Pelin Ayan Musil. Will the decision to arrest Ekrem İmamoğlu ultimately backfire at the government and hurt President Erdoğan himself?
Thank you very much for inviting me. That's a very interesting question because usually the politics of victimhood works very well for politicians in Turkey. If you are detained or arrested, you can boost your political support. It has been the case also for Erdoğan in the past. When he was the mayor of Istanbul, he had also been arrested before becoming the prime minister of Turkey. So we also see that İmamoğlu's popularity is rising, but at the same time, Turkey today is in a much more authoritarian and repressive context, and the state has much more power compared to 20 years ago. So it controls the state, the security forces, the media. So it's a campaign against to crack down the opposition, the main opposition, and I would say it's going so far really neck to neck. So the opposition was also successful in mobilizing the people, but at the same time, the state is very powerful. So I would say that it's a little uncertain right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, the question is, where can Ekrem İmamoğlu count for much support? Now, to Dr. Repetowicz, we'll go to this question. How strong is the support of Ekrem İmamoğlu, apart from what he gets in Istanbul, that's for sure, and other big cities? Now, is this a very similar pattern to what we've seen in Georgia during the past year, that actually, the young inhabitants of big cities protest against the policies of the government, while the province still backs the ruling party?
Well, I would not compare it to Georgia, but on one hand, Ekrem İmamoğlu had one very big advantage. He is a uniting person. I mean, the Turkish opposition, but also the Kurds. Ekrem İmamoğlu had very good relations with Kurds. By the way, Istanbul is the biggest Kurdish town. The population of Kurds is huge, and Kurds supported İmamoğlu during the elections, and it was decisive for his win. And it was one of the things also that enraged Erdoğan, that Kurds supported İmamoğlu, because you must also remember the context that during the Kemalist rule and CHP, from which İmamoğlu is the candidate for presidency, the CHP, the Kemalist party, suppressed for decades everything what was Kurdish. And it was only when Erdoğan came to power that Kurds could speak Kurdish on the streets. And now Erdoğan is spreading acting very with a very divisive policy, the tactics of divide et impera. So when he suppressed with police the demonstrations in the Turkish part of Turkey. So at the same time, because now is the time of celebrations of the Newroz, the new year of Kurds, so he sent the police to give some sweets or cotton candy to Kurds during the celebrations of Newroz, and already it provoked Mansur Yavaş, one of the main figures of the Turkish opposition of CHP party, the mayor of Ankara, to attack Kurds. So this is something that Erdogan counted on to drive a wedge between Kurds and CHP. And so far, I think he has big chances to succeed. And yet, I would like to remind that. İmamoğlu is not the first political prisoner in Turkey.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
He's not. But let me.
The politicians, I would remind that Selahattin Demirtas, whose party won 14% in elections in 2015, is in prison already 10 years, and nothing.
Right. Now, this next question goes to Pelin Ayan Musil. Now, in your opinion, is this Kurdish factor playing that important role in what's currently happening in Turkey? And the following question would be that after the charges, well, quite serious charges, links to terrorism organizations, to terror organizations. Now, how likely are the chances of Ekrem İmamoğlu that he will actually run for the president in 2028?
I very much agree that the Kurds, it's a very strategic factor, and the arrest of İmamoğlu comes actually a very interesting domestic move by the Turkish government. So before he was arrested, there has been a strategy of co-optation targeted toward the Kurdish movement. The Kurdish movement was one of the most important opposition movements in Turkey since 2015, and now the government basically wants to co-opt the Kurdish movement from the opposition bloc by partially meeting the popular Kurdish demands and dividing the Kurdish movement into basically pro-government and pro-opposition factions. So after this co-optation strategy, basically Erdoğan made this move and İmamoğlu was arrested. Well, the chances for İmamoğlu, as I mentioned, I really see it it will be a very fierce and long struggle, fight between the opposition and the government. I think that the protests are really growing, and I also have the same opinion with many of my colleagues that the government might have miscalculated and did not expect such a big reaction, because the arrest came after also a really big repression, like by arresting. So İmamoğlu was not the first politician to be arrested, as has been mentioned. So at the domestic level, there has already been some fear. And the Gezi protest was repressed 10 years ago. The largest movement was repressed. So people, the government thought the people would be actually fearful to be on the streets. So, but now it's not happening.
They are not, as we can see, and we'll have to wait how the situation develops. Pelin Ayan Musil, senior researcher at the Institute of International Relations, Prague, was our guest, as well as Dr. Witold Repetowicz from the War Studies University and research fellow at the Casimir Pulaski Foundation here in our studio. Thank you both very much, and thank you for watching, and stay with us, of course, for much more here on TVP World.